Welcome back, everybody. We're here at the EPG Executive Partners Group podcast. Start that over. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, everybody, welcome back. We're here at episode 2 of the EPG podcast. Here we have our founding member of Executive Partners Group, Richard Vasquez. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So Richard is a financial planner and networking extraordinaire. I'll let you give a little bit of a background on yourself in a second. But to recap our last show, Vlad and I had a really great history of our backgrounds, what we did, how we did it, and what we were able to accomplish in our time. Rich, do you want to give us a little bit about background on you?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Both
your podcast.
Appreciate it. Just to give you a background, we created the Executive Partners Group because a lot of us were part of other networking organizations, and we felt that those organizations were great because a lot of us had no foundation on how to network, what commitments were there, what commitments to the group you needed. So we built that foundation. All of us have a background in those other organizations, which is great because we found that there were some missing components that those organizations had. One of those being barrier to entry. Some of those other organizations allowed newer professionals, and no disrespect to any of the newer professionals out there starting their business. It's very, very hard, and networking is probably the best way to build your business, your brand, your reputation. But we found that a lot of times those newer businesses didn't really have the clientele to refer out to the other members within the group. They were there because they wanted to receive referrals. And so we found that oftentimes that created a little bit of friction between the newer member in that organization and the other members that were really there to help the other members as the main priority. Right, and so that's why the Executive Partners Group was established and created. We wanted people that had a existing client base for 2 reasons. One, I always want to learn about other professionals, their backgrounds, what they do, problems that they solve. I'm very, very fascinated with Vlad's work on the estate planning side. There's so many nuances and intricacies. I actually have a very, very great story I'd like to share and get your input on in a little bit. But marketing, that's another key area that a lot of people need help and support on. And there's newer ways to do it, and there's never-ending ways to do it. And so I feel that by learning about what the other members do, you're not just helping yourself, but you're actually helping your clients as well, too, which is increasing your value proposition.
Right, because once you have a greater network around you, you're actually able to kind of spider that out and say, hey, listen, I can add value for you because I have X, Y, and Z people, and they've proven themselves in so many ways to me already. And I've seen that with you because every time that we've actually met another member that's joined the group, I've seen you refer to them maybe 4 or 5 times in the first few weeks. I think I had that experience personally joining the group. So I think that that's a bit of acknowledgement that we have to have and why we're actually here today with the Executive Partners Group, because there's so much, I think, value in your networking abilities that people just don't understand. They don't understand the value of networking. People don't do it the way you do it. And I think that knowledge and that experience is going to be something that they could really internalize and use for themselves.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
If I may also chime in, as a kind of a networking veteran, I have to tell you, because before I even went solo, I was an in-house employee. I didn't need to network. I was on salary, but I really enjoyed networking. I enjoyed just putting people together, helping people. And then when I went solo in 2009, I really hit the ground running. And as a veteran of 16 years or now going on 17th year in networking, exactly what you were saying, I was starving for a group of, first of all, higher level networkers. Obviously, you have to start somewhere, but a lot of people never progress. So what you just said really resonated with me, because I was starving. Like I would go in, give. I'm not a raider. I don't come in and raid the group and go, one meeting not for me. I'll give them time. Sure. Usually it takes a few months, and I go, this is not for me. This is everybody in a fixed mentality. And then when your group came around, I was like, I'm going to give it a try. I don't know. Sure. And immediately the results I felt 5 minutes in, how people are interacting, what your group's culture is, who are you mining, who is sticking around, who is in that group. It's very powerful. You are really the next level networker guy that should really teach courses on this at this point, because you get something that I was like, am I the only one? I feel insane, but you get it. Like you really get it, and you're a giver. You're very successful yourself. You bring other people. You always elevate other people. Whenever you have an opportunity, you give it. This thing, we're here. You introduced us. You guys organized this podcast. That takes drive and hunger, and this never settling feeling. Never settle for whatever you have. And kudos to you, obviously, as a founding father. Kudos to you for doing this. I love being here, and it's great. It was great meeting you also, and obviously through the group. But I feel like just in this room, we have people who understand how the game is played, where most people never will, even if they think they want to.
Absolutely, because you have a lot of these networking groups where it's like a lot of people come in, just as you say, to kind of see what they can get.
Right.
But they don't really see what they can give. They don't rather look for the opportunities to give. And not for nothing, but a lot of group leaders don't really encourage that. They kind of like, okay, here's a spreadsheet. Who gave who a referral. And that's where it ends. Whereas you see the different opportunities. For example, with me, I have these capabilities with the podcast, with the media, with being able to promote on a larger scale and kind of blast the voice out. And being who you are, you didn't ask me for this. You didn't ask me, hey, Rob, sponsor a podcast. I offered it. I said, hey, this is a great opportunity for us, and we should do this together. And this should be for the group.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And one thing I just want to share within this room that I think we all have in common is a solid support system, because without having a solid support system, I don't think any of us would have the opportunity to be here and continue to grow, continue to build. Right? I have the mindset of a builder mindset. Mm-hmm. I say, okay, we have a good foundation. How do we then layer on the next phase of this? And I look at it like a castle, right? Okay, well, how do we make the moat a little bit bigger? How do we reinforce the walls? How do we make the castle a little bit taller, right? How do we fill it with smarter people so that we can always upgrade? And so, shout out to all of our support systems out there. My wife.
That actually brings me into exactly that. Like, let's talk a little bit about our support systems and what really keeps us going. You were actually just about to mention your wife, so please continue with that.
Yeah, so I think, I'll start from the beginning. My wife and I have been together since we both graduated from college, and when I needed to network, because I was 21 in Midtown Manhattan and I looked like I was 12 years old wearing an oversized suit, nobody would actually pay attention to me. So she understands that the more I went out, the more business opportunities. I don't want to say in the beginning I won a lot of those opportunities, but I got at-bat opportunities in the beginning through networking. Right? And so she realized that there was a little bit of a correlation, and she was very supportive of me going, and sometimes it was Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, wherever there was an opening and an opportunity, she was very understanding and appreciative. How about from your experiences?
Yeah, Vlad, I'd really like to hear about yours, because last time we spoke, you talked a lot about the foundation of like how you got started in the business, how you kind of saw this opportunity. Your mom kind of gave you like that little push, but I think there's probably more at hand regarding like what keeps you going, because the way you move, I see you've going to many different networking opportunities. I see you on your social media. You're very active. You're very much involved in your business, which a lot of business owners are not. Like they kind of, I think we touched on this earlier today, is a lot of business owners, they just lose the drive at one point and they're just like, you know what, let me just maintain here, but you don't seem to sit still.
Yeah, thank you.
I love your social media, by the way.
Thank you. This is my pride and joy because I wanted to be an actor when I was a kid, either an actor or a lawyer, but I figured I went for what I thought was safer. Not so much, but yeah. So we touched upon this, like, you know, my story is that I was a corporate guy and I wasn't going to go in here, and then something happened that drove me to do this and switch into a new area of practice. And my mom gave me a push, she gave me an idea, but at the same time, this was brand new. My wife was. I proposed to my wife when I was a corporate lawyer about to be a VP of North America, but now I'm, you know, out of work guy. And, you know, and again, it's the same as you said, being, you know, 21-year-old in oversized suits, because I was in the middle of recession and no one cares about corporate lawyers. We're like this stick in the mud. So my wife really had to pivot. She had to, I just proposed to her. We're about to get married. And she said, do what you got to do. So
Wow.
I literally had no money, and whatever money I had, I would give whatever I could to her for rent, and I would have the other half to buy a law book and just sit there like a bookworm in the back of our bedroom and then kick her out. And she wasn't very understanding. And then the kids came, and she had a full-time job in Manhattan that we both had to go. But you have to do what you have to do. And then now we have two amazing kids, and it's been we've been married for 15 years. We've been together for. Thank you. We've been together for over 17, and she's seen me in my worst, at my best, and I am out a lot because, you know, I have to network at night, weekends. When I started in 2010, I was a part of a BNI group. We were living in Coney Island, and the BNI group was in Times Square, so I had to get up at 4 a.m. every Thursday, regardless of what it is, wake her up while I'm washing my hair and choosing my tie to wear to a networking group to be there by 7. So,
by the way, you always have fantastic ties and suit combinations, because I think from an estate planning lawyer standpoint, you should win some type of a trophy for best dressed estate planning attorney.
Fact.
By the way, for everybody watching this, you don't understand what this endorsement means to me, because this is one of the best dressed guys ever. I actually, I told you about this. When I go to networking events, I make sure that I sit somewhere near him so I can see what shoes he's wearing. He has the most amazing collection of really like amazing dress shoes, and yet they're tastefully, I'm not saying like they're old or what, they're tastefully broken in. They're just amazing. It's what you would see like in the movies. So thank you.
I'm only doing that because you're there. So,
thank you.
I have to up the game. So part of the group is also making sure that you're elevating other members within the group. And if that means that I know that I need to dress well because Vlad's dressing well, you know what? That's just a byproduct of the benefits to...
I'm dressing well because you're dressing well. All right. Well, that works. Yeah. So basically, make long story short, my wife has been allowing me to do what I do because I'm a builder. There's always an opportunity. Honey, I just got invited to a networking event. It's going to be till 9. I'm not going to be home till 11. And I'm going to wake up tomorrow at 6 and wake you up. And she's like, all right, do what you got to do. So in the meantime, you know, she has a full-time job. She has 2 kids that she takes care of, and kids get sick. You have to go to the doctor. You have to go to activities. I'm around as much as I can be on the weekends. But Monday through Friday, it's pretty much all her. So I wanted to give a shout out to the missus and really the boss of the house. I do what I do for her and the kids. So that's my personal thing.
I think it's really amazing, honestly, because like you see a lot of men that don't accomplish much. And those are the guys usually where you meet their wives. And really, it's just you realize, okay, that's why, you know? And it's,
Sure.
you know, even if it's people that you know growing up, sometimes they just don't get there, you know. But having that support system, like you do, and I do.
Tell us about yours.
You know, I have the greatest wife ever. I'm sorry, guys, but I'm gonna have to.
We'll fight you for that for the belt.
Yeah, no, my wife. You know, when we got married, not many people know this, but I lost the job that I was working part-time. And I was relying on that money not only to pay for the wedding, but also to kind of get us started. So I ended up working Uber for a little while. And my wife told me, hey, Rob, you've been doing marketing for so long. You've been so good at it. You have customers that have been with you since day one, and they're still with me, those same customers. She said, don't give up on that. I understand you're working right now. You're trying to make some money. But I'm here to help you. I'm here to do what I can as well. And 6 months into working Uber just to pay the bills, while we already just had our first baby and all these things, boom, and my business really started to take off. And if it wasn't for her, I probably wouldn't have been able to do that. So, yeah, it's, having that backup in your mind where it's like, I love you, babe.
It's a support.
It's not about the money. It's about your goals, and I'm going to help you achieve those goals. And that's been a beautiful thing for me. So, like, my goal in the near future is to retire my wife. And I think that might actually happen. Thank God for everything that's happened.
Yeah.
Thank God for what the opportunities that have come up. And I know that, my wife's prayers are the reason why they've been coming. So
it's funny you said that. My wife prays. I didn't know because product of former Soviet Union. There's a church, and there's synagogue, but no one's going, or whoever's going is not going to acknowledge. So I grew up kind of agnostic by, not by choice, but by upbringing. And my wife has always been very spiritual, and she is, she recently told me she prays every morning. We're not religious people, but we're both spiritual. But I'm still kind of stuck in the mentality of like, well, I haven't been talking to God before. What's going to make him listen now? And she says, just talk, just talk, just ask. And she told me that a couple of months ago, we had a very interesting conversation. She said, I'm like, I understand everything, but what are you praying for? And she said, I pray for your business. I pray for the podcast. And I'm like, she prayed for the first time I was here. She was like, I'm going to pray for the podcast. I'm like, wow, amazing. So yeah, it's very important. And it's, we're all trying to achieve. We're doing it for them, but without that support, we're limited on time. We would be distracted. We can't be laser focused as we are now to be here to discuss business and other opportunities. And obviously that's important. So I'm glad you guys are all in the same position as me.
Absolutely. So big kudos to our support system.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
Rich, I'd really like to hear a little bit more because, like, me and Vlad and I actually spoke a lot about our experience in the last episode. I'd like to, kind of educate our viewers on some of your background because not only have you kind of established a great networking group, but you're actually, you're very big time in your field. I've seen, your office is incredible. I've seen the people that you do business with on a day-to-day basis. All of them seem to look up to you. You seem to be the CEO in some cases, the way it's been going. It's like everybody's coming to you for everything. So I'd really like to hear about how you got started in this and, kind of like what keeps you going.
Appreciate that. And I'll tell you, it wasn't always like that. I think one of the things I look back at is I was sitting in training. By the way, I was in banking prior, right around 2008, the worst time to start in banking, which is why I pivoted into private wealth management, insurance planning, risk management, was because I started to see people getting laid off, and those people that I looked up to, a lot of those executives, they really weren't in control of their own destiny. And while they had great lifestyles, those lifestyles were taken away from them when they were laid off and those jobs outsourced overseas. So my mother's advisor is actually the reason that I got into this business. I saw how calm and collected he was, and I had actually went to go and schedule a meeting. It's actually funny. We actually have our executive partners group meeting in the same building that he worked in, 245 Park Avenue,
Really?
18th floor.
Interesting.
So I would take the 6 train up on my break. I met with him. He did what we call a fact finder, where he would ask a lot of facts, ask my feelings on the markets and how I felt about money. And one thing that I realized was he was so calm, collected. He had this soft background music, And I said, this is the opposite of the bank where everyone's in chaos. Everyone's worried about getting let go, laid off. And so I asked him, I said, why are you so calm? The world is crumbling right now. And he says, I'm in control of my own destiny. And I said, what does that mean? He says, well, I have my own clients, and as long as I do right by them, they're going to continue to work with me, and I'm going to continue to get referrals, and nobody can take that away other than myself. And I said, tell me more. And so he says, why don't I schedule you an interview? You should speak with our managing partner, and I think that this may be a career path for you. Now, I was mistaken because at the bank, usually you have customers that walk into the bank that ask you for things that they need. Well, when you're starting to build a book of business from scratch, you actually have to go out and find people. And so that's where insert networking year one, because I quickly realized that people were not calling. I was getting 0 phone calls every single day. So I started to realize that you actually have to go out and find the business. So networking was the mechanism and the vehicle to do that. So I look back at my training. I was probably in a training room with 50 other advisors at the time. And we met 2 prominent buildings, 875 3rd Avenue, which is right by the Lipstick Building, which we actually saw the Bernie Madoff situation when it happened from the office building. That was interesting.
Nice.
Crazy times. And then 245 Park Avenue. And while I didn't have a network, I realized that I would actually just go and help as many people as possible. And the people in my training class, they were more interested in elephant hunting or whale hunting, right? They just wanted to find 2 or 3 big clients that they can help make a decent amount of money, take a vacation for a month or 2, and then try it again. And I said, to me, that sounds a little dangerous because you're always relying on that next big opportunity, but what's to say that that person's nephew or son gets into the business and the relationship, they don't need you anymore, right? They're going to pivot advisors to their son or their nephew or somebody else that's in the family. And so I just didn't like that opportunity. So I noticed that the person in the office that had the most clients actually repetitively did better and better and better each year. So for 5 years, I was actually looking at who were the top people in the office and what were the behaviors that they had. And I realized 2 things. 1, they did a lot of transactions and they onboarded a lot of new clients. 2, they had excellent networking circles with people that were like-minded. And that's where I learned and discovered you have to network, kid. And that's what they told me. Kid, you have to network and get a better suit as well too, because you got to get that tailored a little bit, and need to look the part as well. So I want to just quickly talk a little bit about the start of the Executive Partners Group, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So we started at an interesting time. We started 2017 going into 2018. We started meeting at 1 Penn Plaza, so we're going to, Vlad, to your point, we're going to give the West Side a revisit for some of our members over there, bringing it back to the old school days.
We'll try.
And the one ask that a lot of individuals had was, I wanted to learn more about other fields. I want to learn more about other professions. And so in the beginning, we actually used to have a podium. We had a real authentic podium, and we used to have 2 people that would present a case study. And the case study was more of a, tell us a little bit about a problem that a client of yours had. What was the hurdle that they experienced? And then how did you identify the problem, but then also create a solution to create a positive outcome? And so I think within 2 months, I learned about auto mechanic work. I learned about HVAC and how some systems can actually create damage to people if it's not looked at or serviced appropriately. I learned a little bit more about estate planning. I learned more about mistakes that people are making on real estate transactions. I learned about using cheap marketing services, right? I learned a little bit about why you want to really have a great relationship with your banker, with your accountant, with other professionals. And so that was a really interesting exercise because everybody walked away with, now I know a situation when I'm out there talking to clients, and I know that you're going to be able to help me with social media. I know that if I have somebody that did an estate plan with a real estate lawyer because they just threw in a will, which actually I want to...
Yeah, it's one of my favorite topics. Love it.
And some mistakes in planning that were made there.
Right.
Do you think I could actually talk about something that happened yesterday?
I would actually appreciate that, yeah.
So yesterday, one of my advisors that's on my team, Chris, he's speaking with a newer prospect. It was a lukewarm referral. He was interested in looking at a loan against his assets, and he's worth $12 million. He lives in Buffalo, New York, and he's semi-retired. He has 2 children, and they're autistic. And he said, Chris, I'm all set. I've got my financial plan. I've got my estate plan. They're going to each receive $7,000 a month by the time they're 18. And then they're going to slowly inherit $1 million at 25, $1 million at 30, $1 million at 35. And so I've already checked that box. I don't think that I want to have that conversation. What are your thoughts on that? Because I have certain thoughts myself, so would be curious to hear about yours.
Well, it's a good thing that in a couple of hours I have an appointment with my cardiologist because my blood's like literally elevating right now. And it just so happened that we're having this conversation. But honestly, to begin, I could speak volumes on this, and I don't want to sound like, oh, they should have come to me. Someone like me. Because here's what happens. There's a lot of people out there who do something that they're really good at, and then they get this thing in their head that they can also make some extra money on the side by moonlighting and doing something else. And because they don't do that something else, they perceive like it's a no-brainer that anyone can do. And so what ends up happening is they essentially commit malpractice, but by the time it comes to fruition, if that client is young, in 50 years, who knows? They're going to have, a will. So a lot of times what we see happening is we see a lot of real estate lawyers, for example, who are amazing real estate lawyers,
Sure.
do a favor 3-page will. What you told me, I can envision it's a 10-page will because they're a lawyer and they can, in legal terms, build in the system that the kids will inherit, blah, blah, blah. A lot of, and I see a lot of lawyers engaged in litigation do this. I see a lot of, for some reason, litigation, matrimonial, because, hey, we do prenups of 50 pages. Why can't we do a 3-page will? For the same reason, I don't do prenups. 10 years ago, I really needed the money. Someone came in and said, can you do our prenup? And I generally, because I would like to say that, I'm trying to build a brand and network, and just because they were pushy, I said no. Just because they were pushy, I looked at it and I said, no. Even though I was building my first 5 years,
Sure.
I didn't have clients. I could have, but this would be not only malpractice, but let's say they don't go after me. They don't sue me for this. It's a disservice. It will blow up in their face eventually, and I don't want to have that on my conscience. A lot of people are good with it. So in this case in particularly, the kids, even though he's a millionaire, he's a multimillionaire, the kids are autistic, which means they have functioning limitations. They're possibly, even though their dad is a millionaire, would be entitled to Medicaid coverage. And giving them this money will blow up the Medicaid coverage.
Which is resources as well.
Which is, they would...
programs, certain resources.
Absolutely. The medical coverage that Medicaid covers, especially for, we do what's called special needs planning. So, and I also do what's called guardianships, which is when, adult, for example, didn't do anything and now they have Alzheimer's and have functional limitations. So, we need to do planning. So we do Medicaid planning, and to that effect, when these kids are adults, the dad is technically not legally responsible for them. They would be entitled, and a lot of times they could get it now, even with his income and resources. But leaving them this money is a kiss of death to all of this. They're not likely, from just judging from this, are going to be able to manage this money. So they can't manage the money. They can't pay the bills. He's older. He might be a little winded. Right now, he's young and strong and everything, but in 20, 30 years, when they really need him, he has no plan for who's going to be his successor. Right now, he's working, he's making money, mazel tov, he's bankrolling. At some point, he's going to go from growth stage, from accumulation stage to preservation stage. That's when they will need all of it, and he will have nothing. And they will not have government programs that are their lifeline to survival a lot more than even $1 million.
Sure.
So, not a good plan. But
I agree with you.
But I do have to give you props. I've known a lot of people, and as you said, you learn this stuff. I've noticed that you really go above and beyond to learn the subject matter. Estate planning is tangentially, we're tangentially in areas that overlap, but the depth that you actually can go and pick out the buzzwords, the keywords, the problem, I give you props, because that's extremely rare for someone who's, not even in the legal field. You're in another field, and you're really thinking when you hear this, because we've talked over time, and we got to know each other. You really thinking like a lawyer. You see the issues. You don't see, money, dollar sign. You really see the issues like the lawyers do, and kudos to you. So this is a great thing to bring back to your team and discuss maybe with them.
Thank you.
In more detail.
Also, I want to hear a little bit about, how would you approach a client, kind of and tell them hey, you're making a huge mistake. How do you bring that up without maybe insulting them or upsetting them and helping them?
So my approach there is really to ask them a series of questions. The first question is, how did you come to that conclusion? How did you determine $7,000 a month at 18? Right? And I just want to stay quiet just so that they can express their reasoning out loud. Right? Because after a while, you'll start to realize that they'll say, well, I actually spoke with somebody at their school who has a child in a similar situation, and I ask, okay, well, what do they do professionally? And, they actually own a pizza shop, a successful pizza shop.
But they have a very similar situation, which has nothing to do with anything.
And so it's a domino effect. And so what I'm trying to do is not insult them, but I'm getting them to realize...
come to their own conclusion.
Exactly. And so I then follow up with, after they explain the rationale and the reasoning, I'll then start to ask them a little bit about, well, can you tell me a little bit more about the impact that will have with Medicaid planning? Can you tell me a little bit more about who is going to be the trustee for the benefit of the children, and who's going to oversee the money? How do you know they're financially responsible?
So you're kind of leading them to a self-diagnosis.
Exactly. I don't want to tell them, because who am I to them? I need to have them come to a realization themselves. And by the way, I don't want them to say you're wrong. I just want them to say, let's talk further about this to see where there may be some blind spots. Oh, okay, I understand now that maybe we should have a deeper conversation about these things. And I tell all my clients, by the way, your situation will likely change. You're 37 years old right now, and you've accumulated a great net worth for your age. But what happens at 47, at 57, at 67? Their tax law changes. He's probably going to move. He said he might want to change his residence to Florida or Texas for state income tax purposes, right? But there are going to be changes, and so you have to constantly be in touch with your advisors. And I tell everyone, speak to your estate planning attorney at the minimum every other year. At the minimum every other year, you should sit down, review the plan. How's it going? Should I make any adjustments, any updates here? Because I'll tell you another situation that I had. I had a client who got their estate plan done, and they got divorced. And so got remarried.
If there's ever a good time for divorce.
Got remarried. And it was the honeymoon phase of the new marriage. And so unexpectedly passed away.
Oh, man.
Kids from the first marriage. What does the will say? What do you think the will said?
Probably he never changed the will. He sold to the first wife.
And so now there's friction between spouse number one, spouse number two.
And the kids.
And the kids are in the middle. Yep.
The kids are in the middle.
Yep. That's always fun.
Major life change. What would be your recommendation for your clients speaking to you, frequency, any triggers that you would say, we should talk if this happens? Right.
So we actually, I completely poached my methodology from the financial sector, and I say, as they say in financial planning, this is called a major life-changing event. Marriage, divorce, birth, death, moving to a different jurisdiction. You always have to be keen to that, but at least annually, maybe semi-annually, you have to revisit your estate plan, and at least annually, but more often you should be talking to your financial planner. Specifically in your first situation, for example, I feel for that guy, and he should be thinking about, for example, not only accumulating wealth, but also having, and again, I'm not a financial guy,
sure,
something like annuity or something like that with a guaranteed income stream.
Sure.
Because his kids will, assuming, let's say, they qualify for Medicaid or whatever, there will be things that Medicaid pays for and Medicaid doesn't pay for. And the wealth as just this chunk of money may run out. It may just not be, if they have a budget that they know they can look into, and that will go, let's say, obviously not to them personally, sure, but in some kind of receptacle like a trust, it can accumulate there, and you know it's guaranteed, and you know it's coming, and accumulates, and if need be, you can just open that faucet. That's really that's really, so on your first scenario, when I speak with my clients, I always say, look, I'm not a financial guy, but I can see issues with your thing because you have limited income, and your wealth is flimsy at best. You have $1 million in IRA, fantastic. And then what? The market jumps up and down.
Right.
What are you going to do? You need to diversify.
Sure.
And I'm like, we're going to diversify here in a simpler way with a will and a trust. You need financial products that will withstand the scrutiny, whatever the laws. If the law changes and something gets hit, you need another avenues to have in a portfolio.
Absolutely.
So in the second scenario, it's funny, when I started, I have this interesting story. When I first started, and I was networking 2012 maybe, there was this guy I met. He was, and I'm happily married, just saying, tall, good-looking guy. Just a master networker, I think we talked about that before, and he was doing financial planning. His entire niche was recently divorced wives.
Really?
He would just find them somehow like a truffle pig. He would get them all in the room. There's just 40 blondes who have this like Jeff Bezos' wife kind of a scenario, and they've never balanced a checkbook. And he goes, ladies, you're with me. And they go, oh my God, he's so cute. And he was very successful right out of the gate. That was his whole thing. That's all he did.
Find the niche.
That was his whole thing. He's like tall. He's over 6 feet tall and a good-looking guy. And I'm like, dude, all right, that's more power to you.
Sure.
But obviously in these scenarios, there's a lot of issues that are, that you need to, this is a major life-changing event. Revisit it.
Sure.
This guy probably went through a messy divorce. He didn't want to think about anything. He got a new wife, and he's happy. But he just doesn't, he wants to close that chapter because it's obviously emotionally taxing, but you got to give it one little push.
Sure.
You just have to straighten things out because this happens a lot. This happens. Like, we have a case right now where everybody is alive, but the spouses made irrevocable, mutually beneficial, irrevocable trusts, and now they're getting divorced. And they're lovely people in their right, but undoing that, luckily they're alive. But undoing that is a challenge. There's a lot of lawyers in the room, let's say this way, and we're all on board. We're all, luckily there's no animosity. They're fantastic people, but even these things happen, and luckily they caught it, they nipped it in the bud now. But when someone passed, estate litigation gets so messy because it's so deeply emotional.
Sure.
It's sometimes, I've heard when I started, because I do mostly transactional, we do estate litigation, but I don't do it personally because of how emotionally attached you have to be.
Sure.
And I've heard when I started, someone said that they would rather take defending a triple homicide over one estate litigation case.
Wow.
That's how messy it can get.
I've heard something similar with a client that had to go through probate. They said, and I'm going to use air quotes here, it was like going to the DMV and getting punched in the face multiple times for an 18-month period with uncertainty and not knowing what the end result was going to be.
Pretty much, yeah, but
Is that a fair assessment?
I think they got out easy on time terms. That's pretty much. It depends. It's like we deal with surrogates courts primarily in New York City. It's a completely different animal. Everything in New York City is different. Even Medicaid, like Medicaid all over in New York and others has. Their offices have one name, and Medicaid in New York has a separate name that no one else has. They just want to be different. And the courts are different. You can't really fault them because, New York City is overpopulated, hyped up, insane, which is interesting because if you think of surrogates court, if you go through probate, there is in every surrogates court, which go by county, there's one. There's trial courts, there's divorce. There's one surrogates court, there's one judge. Called a surrogate throughout the country. I'm not aware of any other jurisdictions that has two except for two jurisdictions. Brooklyn has two because it's a county that's probably bigger than Texas.
Right.
And it's messy. And Manhattan has two, which is the smallest of the counties, but with all the money and all the celebrities, two people barely keeping up.
Right.
It's insanity what's going on, especially, and these are really my courts.
Sure.
This is my sandbox. This is where primarily we are. We do Bronx, Queens, and Long Island, and neighboring things. But this is my playground, and you never know. It's like sometimes I think like we don't do it for money because this is too much fun for us, not for clients. But we take this, we come in, we go. What's new today? It's great.
Sure.
It's great people working in courts, but they're completely overworked, and sometimes the deadlines just run on one another.
Sure.
That's so interesting because people have so many different stories. Everybody has their perspective, their own lives. They're that main character in their life, and these situations kind of trickle into other people's lives, other people's businesses, and it becomes these stories. Actually, like in my career, I've actually experienced issues like this, believe it or not, in the field of digital marketing. It does happen. Like I had in Arizona, a dental office, very, very successful. They had 8 or 9 chairs. They had all kinds of specialists. It was a husband and wife owners, and they decided that they're going to split up, and they were splitting up the business and everything. They started everything together, 15 years, blah, blah, blah. So I'm in the middle of this now, and I'm like, okay, well, what do you guys want me to do now? What's the plan? And they're going through all the proceedings and everything like that. This was about 4 years ago. And they say to me, okay, so the wife decided she's going to move to Nevada to go be with her parents, and she's opening up a practice over there. The husband's going to pay to buy her out of this practice, and she's going to go over there. Now, he needs marketing just for him, and she needs marketing just for her. They're creating new corporations, and I'm kind of like, in the middle of all their back and forth, and I'm like, oh, my God, this is not what I signed up for. And then we have the other side, the flip side, where it's an attorney's law firm where there's the two partners are splitting up. Now I'm doing marketing for two competing firms, and I'm like, this is a little bit not comfortable.
Wow.
Did one try to one up the other?
They both tried to one up the other. I actually had to kind of tell one of them, I'm gonna just do one respectfully.
Yeah.
You know, this, that. It's like, 'cause that one was, he was in the wrong.
Sure.
So I'm gonna hang out here. I'm gonna do what I gotta do, and I'm just gonna help you guys get the keys to everything. So make sure everything is nice. They were trying, like, I just want you to not do his stuff here. I want you to not, like, you know what? Let me just.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting is I have a story that kind of mixes both of your businesses. I have a client that was in solar sales, 49 years old, I believe just turned 50. And this is where the ClickFunnels craze came in. Let me teach you about creating a ClickFunnels. And this is a person that went door to door knocking cold and was a top salesperson just door to door knocking in the heat of Florida. And so doing well, mid six-figure income, and he gets introduced to ClickFunnels. And so he says, maybe I should start a new entity, because I'm going to learn the ClickFunnels thing. Hired a marketing agency. He says, I can't believe I haven't marketed like this, and I've literally been going by foot, knocking on people's door, and that's been my business model for the last 20 to 30 years. Mm-hmm. So within a 6-month period of time, he generated what he generated the entire year in the first 6 months. And we all know trial, error, right? So what's working, what's not working. And so he created a new entity, a new business, and unfortunately he didn't have operating agreement, articles of incorporation established, single member LLC, and leads are just coming in, leads are coming in. So business is good. Then he dies.
Oh, man.
2 kids, wife, and had an estate plan, reviewed his estate plan, had life insurance, had a few million in life insurance. Kids, okay, everything divided. You want to know what the one thing was that they couldn't take out?
The business?
Was stuck. Because what does the bank want to see?
Probate.
They want to see the operating agreement. They want to see the articles of incorporation.
Yeah, they want to show the, wow.
So, and all that new money that he was generating from all of those new sales went into that new business. And so here's somebody that, even though they were reviewing their estate plan, forgot to mention, hey, by the way, I started this new marketing thing with my business, and I created another entity. And so this is why you want to review with, and I say with all of your advisors, right? You're starting something new, speak to all of your advisors, give them the update. If it's at least for peace of mind, knowing that you told people about your new venture, right? You should be telling everybody about it. Be excited. Share with them what you're doing. You never know how you can help someone. So I look at that story and I say, even the person that had it all put together, there was one thing that just, because they were running, life happens. And so you just sometimes forget to, where did I put that pen today? Right? And it was one of those situations. But to your point on marketing, I think marketing in my business and in his business, I'll tell you, in our business, we operate like dinosaurs, right? Because people are just so used to the way it has been done for decades that I think that your business has just never-ending growth potential with how you can market and educate. I'm fascinated. Every time I talk to you, I'm fascinated about a different type of campaign or a different type of video that you're able to produce results with, because it's like, no, Rich, no, Rich, when it comes to any type of a old school wealth management firm. That's why when you see lots of these commercials, you see happy families at the park walking, and then they say, secure your future, and then there's the kids running in the background, right? That's just what they've used for so long, but I think that we're living in a new world, and I think that you have the brain to identify how do we get people to think differently so that they can then take action? Because somebody may have thought that they checked the box. I have it all set. Just like the client that we just spoke to.
Yeah.
I have it all set. But how do we get them to realize we should probably have a deeper discussion?
Right.
Yeah, and that brings up a really good point, because for me, that's always the challenge, it's trying to get people to see beyond their own success, because you have so many founders that'll, oh, well, I do it this way and it's good. I make about $500,000 a year. I make $1 million a year in my business, but okay, but you're also working 12 hours a day.
Right.
It's like maybe there's room for improvement. Yeah, but it works. I have to do this because I'm the guy. I'm the only one that can. It's like, no, you're kind of getting in your own way.
Sure.
Try to see that there are opportunities outside, and what you mentioned earlier with like kind of asking the right questions to get people to really see, not really the mistakes that they're making, but they're being a little bit more closed off towards other things that they're not thinking about. So opening their eyes to that is really kind of like the way I've taken my business off. Is I've done in my business when I was working about 6 or 7 years ago, I was doing about 20 to 25% close rate in sales. Now I'm doing 67% because I've learned that you can't convince people anymore. People are so jaded. People are so they've been sold to 10 times that day before they even came in to clock in their office. So you really got to change up the approach. And that's a really great thing in sales, is being able to ask the right questions to get them to open up to change, because that is real sales. It's change.
Yeah.
Helping people realize that, and nowadays it's like you can get people an increase in their sales just by putting in the right pipelines. If you can just nurture a lead when it comes in a little bit better, because how many people do you know that do marketing, they get 100 leads and they've only really got like 5 people to make it to a meeting because you haven't nurtured that
by the way
prospect.
Let's talk about dinosaur. Talk about the dinosaur era.
Okay.
So, have any of you seen Boiler Room, or have any of you
Yeah,
seen the old
absolutely.
school Wall Street movie, Wall Street?
Always be closing.
Always closing, right? So, let's talk about the metrics there. When I started in the business, that was starting to die down, but you still had people that grew up in the 90s in that environment. Smile and dial, right? Did you make your 300 dials today? Did you make your 400 dials today? You know what the ratios were on that? 400 to 2. They would schedule 2 appointments. That was the goal. The goal was 2 new appointments a day. Can you imagine just continuing on that hamster wheel and not finding a better way? And the person that did the 400, who had the 2 appointments, they were the man, or they were the gal, right? Like, they were the person who did what you needed to do. I look back and I say, oh, can't believe we did that. There are better ways, right? To your point. I'd rather have 40 leads, nurture them better, and walk out of there with 5, 6, 7 client opportunities. Sounds better to me.
100%.
I think we all have to just think a little bit smarter and think differently, right? I was actually listening to a podcast, or actually audiobook on the way here. Ryan Holiday, Wisdom Requires Work, right? And it talks about how a lot of us get complacent and a lot of people just kind of stay level. They get to a certain place and just kind of coast. And he says that those that are driver personalities or driven, they constantly have this childhood instinct to always ask why. Why? 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 Eventually, because adults have said for so long, because I said so. And so it became acceptable to just take that as the answer. And so I always ask myself, why? How? How can we make this better? Why is that the way that they do business? And so I think that through that mindset and through that lens, it's just expanded my mind to different opportunities, different ways of thinking, and always asking other people, Interesting. Tell me more. How's that worked for you? All right, because I think there's always a lesson there. Even though you may know it, maybe this person does it slightly different than you, and maybe you save an hour a day, right? So 12 hours, you're shaving off 1 hour over a 1 year period of time, over a 10-year period of time. Yeah, now this person is running laps around you, even though it's something so small.
By the way, can I just say, I want to give shout out to my kids. You just said 6, 7, so I'm just sending it out there. And I didn't want to interrupt you. I was like, but yeah, actually, to your point, this is also a great point that I am trying to tackle. Is, I'm a different generation from you guys, but I am. I grew up on like when there was no Google yet. I saw the birth of Google and Yahoo, and so all we know is SEO and Google, and Google, and ChatGPT is the next, but it's the next SEO basically permutation, and Google is changing. But I kind of was thinking that. And this is what you do. We've talked about this in the marketing arena. There's also all this marketers. We will get you Google clicks. We will get you SEO. Right. And the thing is that none of this really at this point works in itself. It may be working, but without diversifying the portfolio on the marketing arena, you need to do it TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. What am I? Meta. No, not Facebook, it's Meta. But all of those things need to be taken into account, and you just like we talked about, diversify that portfolio. God forbid something is not clicking, something else keeps clicking. Because God knows, I've worked with several agencies before that were like a one-trick pony, and 5 years ago when they started, they did, whatever they did, and they're still doing it because that's all they know, but it's not what's now required. Sure. And you need to, and I know you do, to your point, that extra oomph, that extra nurture, because you do that, you do the nurturing, it takes integrity from all of us, from each of us, how you think about that potential client. Even if he never calls, it's a concern. You want to help him.
Sure.
And I know you, with all your clients, we've talked about this, where you actually come up with a holistic audit and you say, look, we're going to look at everything at the same time. We're not just going to pigeonhole this.
Marketing is expensive. You could have $100,000 ad budget without even realizing it sometimes. And I've seen this actually. I've had a customer come to me with spending $500,000. They didn't know where it was going or how it was even returning to them. So like, you really got to be careful. It's like you have to have the right messaging. You have to have the right systems in place, because it's not always about volume. It's about impact, because you could show your message on Instagram, on Facebook, Meta, to 1 billion people. What's the impact? Are those the right people? Are they hearing the right things from you? And I think that's what's missing from marketing in a lot of places. And don't get me wrong, there are a lot of agencies that are doing the right thing. And a lot of companies that are adopting those. But I think there's, as you say, the dinosaurs that need a little bit of kind of push in the right direction sometimes. I think that's our time, though. Maybe before we sign off, one line of advice for our audience. Rich, let's start with you.
I think always ask your advisors, who are the top advisors to them? All right, so I think that a lot of times we don't want to understand the lineage of how did this person become my advisor and what's their story. We just kind of take for granted, well, this person is my advisor and I'm going to ask them questions, but you'd be shocked to actually hear a little bit about their journey as well too. So part of networking is also asking people how they got to where they are, and I'm just fascinated with that. So in 2026,
what makes them click, right?
What makes them click, and how did they get there? Mm-hmm. All right, and so to me, one piece of advice would be, how did they get there? Because you'd be shocked where they would make an introduction, and now you're elevating your network because now your mentor is introducing you to people that are now one level above where you're looking to get to, right? And so I think that that's one way to elevate your network, elevate everyone's network, and the byproduct is going to be you, your clients, everyone you interact with.
Makes sense.
That's Vlad.
So I have just three things, three proverbs that I want to say, and it's in lieu of this discussion. So I think networking, I believe Woody Allen said this, 90% of success is just showing up. Michael Jordan said, and it's on the internet, so it must be true. It's attributed to them. Michael Jordan said, I can accept failure. I can't accept not trying. And that should be the networking mindset. And lastly, to your more recent point, this is something that I've always kept in my head. And when I heard it already working, it clarified a lot of my efforts. And that is, success is never final and failure is never fatal. And that, I'm just going to let that linger. And if you repeat that to yourself every day, you'll be in a much better place very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there are not enough people that understand that. And I think a lot of what we touched on is really sales here. It's like, how do we make a change? Which I believe, and I really do believe this passionately, is that sales is really about helping people make a change. And even with yourself, like helping yourself make that change, you're kind of convincing yourself, that persuading yourself that this is essential for you. So I think the message I want to leave with today is that everybody should try to make some sort of positive change in their life and ask that why question. It's like, why does this person have that result and I have this result? And is that person better than me? Which I think
Absolutely.
100% of the time they're going to get the answer, no, that person is not better than me. If they were able to accomplish it, I should too.
Absolutely. And I'm going to close with actually the audiobook that I listened on the way in, which resonated with me. You have to learn to earn.
Exactly.
Always be learning.
Always be learning.
Always be learning.
ABL. Always be learning.
Well done.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.